readers! Today I'm going to be doing a non-spoiler discussion on Siege and Storm by Leigh Bardugo. Before I jump in, just so you know, it is hot and muggy as all heck here in New York, so I tried to do something nice with my hair, but I gave up. It is what it is. Anyway, Siege and Storm is the second book in her Shadow and Bone trilogy. I already did a non-spoiler discussion on book 1, Shadow and Bone. If you want to check that out, you can click on the link above. But I'm going to jump into Siege and Storm, and like all my reviews, I'm going to be talking about 3 main things: world building, characters, and plot. If there's a specific topic you're more interested in, I will be putting chapter times in the description box below. So just a quick setup, I wanted to base set my expectations for Siege and Storm, because when I first read Shadow and Bone, I did like it, but I had some issues with it. Mostly with the main character, Alina. I found her to be kind of a blank slate, not a lot going on there. So I was really hoping to see her character more developed in book 2. I was hoping to see more world building in book 2, and I was hoping to see a more concise and better flowing plot in book 2. So I'm going to jump in and start talking about world building. Because this is a fantasy series, like any good fantasy sequel, it should be expanding on the world building and lore that has been set up in this world. And this book does do that a little bit, but I don't think that it did it enough. So, small spoiler from book 1. If you really don't want to know anything about this series at all, then, please jump ahead a minute. But at the end of book 1, Alina had found her necklace from the stag. And now in book 2, we find out that the stag was not the only animal that has a special power associated with it. As you can probably tell from the cover of this book, the second animal, they call it in the book a sea whip, but it's basically a water dragon. Like, they call it a sea whip, it's a water dragon. So there's another animal now that Alina needs to go after and get something from so that she can further increase her power. So I did like the addition of the sea whip, but, and I will circle back to this in the plot section, that whole part of the book happens in like the first few chapters. And then we find out that there are other creatures out there, but none of the other ones are seen in this book. I think that clearly it's being saved for the last book in this series. So other than that small piece of world building though, there's not a lot else of world building that goes on here. And I found that a little disappointing, because after seeing the Shadow and Bone TV show, I know that there is a greater world out there. Like, this whole series so far has pretty much taken place in one location, the country of Ravka. There's East Ravka, there's West Ravka. There's the fold in the middle, the darkness. And I know, because it's mentioned in the book, they go there in the show, there are other countries next to Ravka. There's the north, Fjorden, the Fjordans, they're kind of like a Viking race. And then we have the Shuhan in the south, and they're more of like a Asian-inspired race. There's various islands off the coast of Ravka where we have like the crows and their whole stuff. So I was expecting this book to further expand on some of those other locations. It does not. The 90% of this book still takes place in Ravka and still takes place at like the same spot that the first book took place in. So that was a little disappointing. Next, I'm going to move on and talk about our characters. First, I'm going to start with Alina because she's the main character. Like I said, I was really hoping that Alina would have some further development and further, just something would change about her to make her a more fleshed out character. I did not feel like that happened. In fact, I feel like the author took Alina's like worst qualities and like really leaned into them hard. So things like Alina can be very whiny at times. She has no communication skills whatsoever. Like she thinks all these things and then she doesn't tell anyone around her what she's thinking or what she's feeling. And like, oh my God. I mean, it's one thing when like you know something but the characters don't know and you kind of yell at them like, oh, if you just told each other this, you know, it would fix. Like imagine that, but like through the entire book, like the entire book. So that was really frustrating. Now I'm trying, I always try to give people and characters the benefit of the doubt. And, you know, Alina was dealing with some stuff, you know, maybe that affected her more than she realized. But at the end of the day, she still came across as super whiny. She still, even though she's the main character, I feel like she's still the weakest point out of characters' world building plot. And yeah, I don't know. Hopefully that changes in book 3, but my expectations have been severely lowered now. And then we have Alina's main love interest, who is Mal. Now, I was not the biggest fan of Mal in book 1 because in book 1, he kind of starts out as this like playboy type, you know, ooh, everyone loves me and I'm so handsome and flirty. And then all of the sudden, when he sees that someone else wants Alina, all of a sudden he likes her now. So I wasn't the biggest fan of Mal. So now Alina and Mal are together in this book, or at least at the start of this book. And their relationship, to me, kind of goes from like school children type crushing relationship and basically just falls apart into like a toxic mess. So like the whole thing I said where characters not talking to each other, like that's Alina and Mal. Neither of them talk to each other. Neither of them, they don't talk about their hopes, their dreams, their desires, what they want. They don't acknowledge who each other really are. And half the book, I feel like Mal is just there as like a little lovesick puppy. And then the other half of the book, he kind of swings the other way where he's just like a hurt, angry little puppy that's been kicked. So Mal still continues to be my least favorite character. Now, my favorite character from book 1 was the Darkling. I thought he was a great villain. I really liked his backstory. And I really liked the setup that the Darkling was trying to help the Grisha, even if he was not doing it in the right way. In this book, there is very little Darkling. Even though the whole plot kind of centers around defeating the Darkling and how are we going to, fight the Darkling, he's barely in this book, which is sad to me because I love the Darkling. So we have a villain that's basically non-present. Again, he's in like the first few chapters and then he goes away. And then Alina has visions, but maybe not type visions of him a couple times. And then I think they see each other briefly at the end. It's very weird. He's like there, but not there. We don't really get to spend any time with him. We don't get to further explore any of his backstory, which he has a very long and there's a lot of material there that could have been built on, pulled from. None of that happened. So the fact that the Darkling was not a major player in this book, another disappointment. And then even some of the minor characters that I really liked from book 1, Genya, Bagra, they're there, but again, very minor roles, very minor characters, so they didn't really have a big impression. This book is really the Alina and Mal show, and that was horrible. I feel bad saying that, that's why I'm laughing. But I do want to end on a positive note and say that there was one shining light of a character in this book, and that is a new character called Nikolai. Now, Nikolai is one of 2 princes of Ravka. In book 1, we knew there was a king and a queen. We knew there were princes, but we never really saw them. But in book 2 now, we get to meet both princes, and specifically Nikolai, who is the younger of the two, steps up and takes a major role in this book. And he was probably my favorite character of Siege and Storm. I really liked Nikolai as a character. Again, he has a very interesting backstory. He leads a very interesting life. He does a lot of different things. He's not only a prince, he's also like a part-time pirate, a part-time privateer, a part-time like army person. He has a lot of stuff going on, and he has a lot of personality, which make him a shining star in this sea of lame characters. So Nikolai, he was a great character. I hope that he continues into book 3 because I really liked him. And finally, now we come to the plot. So the plot of Siege and Storm is basically, like I said, Alina needs to find the sea whip so that she can get its scales, and that will help enhance her power so she can fight the Darkling. And she's going to fight the Darkling by going back to Ravka, back to the Little Palace, which is the head of the Grisha community. She's going to take over the Grisha. She's going to become the leader of the Second Army, which is what the Darkling was in the previous book. So now she is going to be in charge, and whatever Grisha are left or who are loyal to her, they will, fight against the Darkling. So the whole plot, like I said, all the sea whip stuff, like that part of it, happens very early in the book. So pretty much 80% of the book is Alina trying to take charge of the Grisha and plan on how to defeat the Darkling. And it's just like a lot of plot, but I feel like not a lot actually happens. So it's kind of hard to explain, but yeah, so 80% of this book is just preparing for one thing, that there is a confrontation at the end, but honestly, the confrontation, like that it's been leading up to, you think it's going to be this big thing, it doesn't even turn out that way. Like, it doesn't turn out to be this big thing, and I can't really go into it that much without giving away spoilers, but again, I felt like it was a lot of lead up for nothing. I feel bad, but there's really not much else to the plot. Sea Whip, Alina and Mal slowly falling apart, Alina trying to take charge of the Grisha. I will say, she struggles with herself, she has self-doubt, all that stuff is understandable. But at the end of the day, the plot was kind of boring. If it wasn't for Nikolai, yeah, I don't know what else would have saved this book. So, those are my thoughts and feelings on Siege of Storm. Obviously, it was not my favorite read in the book of May. I probably will read the last book in the series because I've already read 2, and I'm one of those people, once I start, I have to keep going and know what happens. Anyway, if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. If you're not already, please subscribe to my channel. I do new reviews every Wednesday, new videos on Sunday, and sometimes on Friday, like today. All right, everyone, happy reading.